Hi everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. So as you can see on this screen, the webinar has started, so you should hear audio. If you do not, or if it's breaking up, cutting in and out, that kind of thing, I recommend closing GoToWebinar and then reopening it. That tends to resolve most issues. You can also take notes of the phone numbers that are on the screen. Those are the customer success numbers here at Lightspeed, and our launch coordinators can help get you situated. My name is Livia. I'm an implementation specialist here at Lightspeed, and I will be facilitating the webinar for the next hour. I'm excited to get to talk to you about Lightspeed Analytics. Between all of us here, it is my very favorite product. I think it's a lot of fun and you can do a lot with it. So I hope that I can transfer some of my enthusiasm that I have over onto all of you here today. In terms of what we will be chatting about, we will go over the essentials. So accessing Lightspeed Analytics, setting up goals and the configuration, and really navigating through the platform. We'll also look at the dashboards and the report sections, so how to use each of these, and look at the different section of the reports. So there's the sales and inventory, employee performance and marketing, and we'll go over customizing reports and saving and scheduling them to run on a regular basis. There is a dedicated Q&A at the end. However, this is a live webinar. I'm a real person behind the screen going through the motions in real time. So if at any point you need a clarification of what we're talking about, please don't be shy to type directly to me using the questions section of GoToWebinar. So you should have, a little text box either below the slide that you're currently seeing, or on the panel, maybe on the left, there will be a question mark where you can type your questions. And final two bits of housekeeping. So not only can you ask me questions, but I will be asking all of you a series of poll questions throughout the webinar. And that's just to understand your needs a little bit better. So when you see those poll questions come up, if you can take just a few seconds to answer them, that's a huge benefit to me. And lastly, this webinar is being recorded, and so you can rewatch it once it gets sent to you. It's sent to you via email about 2 hours after the webinar ends, and you can rewatch it or share it with colleagues who were not able to attend today. Without further ado, we will dive in. So let's talk about accessing Lightspeed Analytics. It is not a separate login or anything like that. You can access Lightspeed Analytics right from the R Series platform. So if I go to Reports, I should have a tab up at the top that says Lightspeed Analytics. So it's time for the first poll question, which is, do you have that Analytics tab on the Reports page? All right, I believe everybody has participated and you all have the Analytics tab, which is excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll. Thank you for participating. So in clicking on Lightspeed Analytics, that will open up a new tab that will look something like this. So you'll have a little welcome landing page with a checklist of 5 items, and these items are intended to orient you through the first few steps of the platform. Eventually, this does go away, and it's replaced with the dashboard welcome page. So I recommend after the webinar, poke around, see what's what. The main navigation of Lightspeed Analytics is on the left-hand side. So starting in the top left, we have the L for my username. This square icon is where the dashboards are housed, and dashboards are graphs and visualizations that we'll see in a little bit. This sort of checkbox graph image is the Reports tab. So that's where all the reports are kept. And the gear icon is the admin, but this is where you manage your settings, your goal setup, and your configuration. I have an additional icon that looks like a stack of pancakes. Don't worry about this. You won't have it in your accounts, and we're not going to touch on it at all. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to set up our inventory configuration. So I can either go in the checklist and click on, in the third item, click on configure, or I can use the left-hand icon, and I'm going to click on that gear icon, and I will select configuration. The configuration is very important in terms of the Lightspeed Analytics setup because it's setting up your settings and parameters, basically. So I'm going to click on Begin Configuration. And the first thing it's going to ask is for you to select your industry. So we've got a nice little list that you can choose from here. If you don't see anything that applies to you, you can always select other retail, but select the industry that most applies to you. I happen to know that we are looking at a sporting and equipment goods store, so that's what I'm going to select. And then I'll go to the next step. Now, this second page is the most important page in the Lightspeed Analytics configuration because it is directly related to your inventory management reports. On this page, you configure after how many days of being in stock are items considered to be dusty at a category level. So the dusty inventory is Lightspeed's aging report. It looks at how long you've had something in stock without a sale. So for my first category, apparel, I want that to be marked dusty after 90 days. So before the end of my season, I can see what's not selling and potentially mark it on sale. Snow sports, I'm going to say that those items will be marked dusty after 300 days of being in stock. And maybe for bikes as well. So for each category that you have, you can really configure after how many days of being in inventory are items going to be dusty. Now, if you have categories of items that are not really true items that you sell, but rather services that you offer, I want you to draw your attention to the checkbox on the right-hand side where it says Show Alerts. So for this shop, I'm actually going to uncheck the checkbox next to the labor category because labor is not actual physical items in my shop that are gathering dust, but as I mentioned, they're services that I offer. So in unchecking that category for show alerts, this is telling Lightspeed Analytics, I never want you to consider that category to be dusty. So if you have categories of items such as labor, shipping, coupons, that kind of thing, you can uncheck show alerts for those items so that you're not taking them into account for the reporting. From there, I'm going to click on Next Step. This is information you are interested in capturing about your customers, so it can be used for marketing purposes. So just check off the information you're interested in, and then you can select Finish Configuration down at the bottom. And then it'll say, great. With those changes, any changes you've made will be reflected tomorrow morning. So it does take overnight to set. So if you currently have a dusty value in your account, that value may change tomorrow morning. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click back to the gear icon for admin. And this time I'm going to set up some goals. Now someone's already been in this account setting up goals, so I'm just going to click on previous step in the top right-hand corner just to go back, to the beginning. No spoilers. All right, so goals are a really great way to track performance, and if you have sales targets in mind, this is where you're setting that up. So I'm going to click on Begin Configuration, or Begin Setup. And you can choose at which point you would like to start tracking your goals. So if you want to start tracking your goal from this current month, you can do so. If you want to backdate your goal to be the start of your financial year or the calendar year, you can also do that if you choose. I'm going to start our goals from July of 2022, and I'll click on Next Step. So all of your locations will be listed here, and you can set a target for each one of your locations. And you can set your targets in one of two ways. You can either look at what you've done in the previous year, so the previous 12 months, and say, okay, based on this, I would like to do 10% on top of my previous year. And at location B, it will be 15% on top of my previous year. So you can set percentage goals. If you have targets in mind that you want to achieve, you can type that in under new goal. So let's say at location A, I actually want to do $9 million in sales, and at location B, it will be 7 million. And I can go through the list and continue setting new targets. Once you've set that, go ahead and select next step. So then it will give you a summary across all of your locations. So that's what the annual sales goal will be. What I really like doing is set monthly and individual shop goals. It's optional, but I think it's a good idea. So I'm going to click on set monthly shop goals now. You know your business best and you know when you're busy. So you can set targets, if you are a seasonal business and you're very, very busy from November through to March, you can set higher targets for those months and maybe lower targets, April, May, June when you're less busy, or vice versa, whatever your busy season is. So you can set targets for each location, for each month. If you've been using Lightspeed retail long enough, what will be mapped out here is when Lightspeed thinks you're busy. So based on your portion of sales, it might set higher targets in August if you have a lot of sales in August versus July or September. So the system maps it out on when it thinks you are busy, but I like to say, you do know your business best, so go ahead and map out those goals for each month. But once you have those, you can go ahead and click on Save Goals and proceed. The last thing it's going to ask for is for you to maintain a margin goal. So this is basically saying what portion of the goal that you set up would you like to be profit. So I'm just going to indicate a 10% goal here and then click on Finish Goal Setting. You have to go through all of these steps in order to save changes, so you just want to go until the very end. Then we'll get a summary of our annual sales goal and our profit goal, which we can see is 10% of our annual sales goal. So like the configuration, the goal setup does take overnight to, set up in your account. But once that's done, tomorrow morning, if you head over to the dashboards, so I'm going to click on that square icon over on the left. Once you've set up the goals, they'll be represented in the dashboards. So this will show us our goal for this month so far. So the green bars that you see are the goal, the target that we want to achieve. And these are cumulative. So it's not saying on the 31st, I want to do $3.8 million in sales, but hopefully throughout the course of the month, I will get closer and closer to achieving that goal by the last day. If you are under goal, it will be represented in red, as you can see here. And if you are over goal, it will be represented in dark green. At any point, you can select Manage Goals, and that will take you back to the goal setup. And you can also change the time period. So right now we're looking at this month. I can see how I performed last month or this year so far. It's up to you. Since we are on the dashboard page, let's talk about the information that's available to us beyond the goal tracking. So the navigation for this page is done up at the top once we're here. So right now I'm looking at the overview. And if I were to scroll down, I would see a bunch of metrics and I would see them all on one page. So I can see, returning customers and transactions per day and so on. So I really could scroll until there was nothing left for me to see at the bottom. I'm going to come back up to the top, and this time I will select the Sales tab, so just next to Overview. And that reformats the dashboards, and it will just show me the pertinent sales metrics. So I could see sales year over year and category sales and upsell opportunities. The dashboards, you are able to manipulate them. So let's take a look at this weekly category sales dashboard. Based on this graph, I can deduce that the highest category, the most profitable category, I should say, is probably the bike category. And if I hover over it, I can see, how much money was sold that week and so on. If I wanted to see this breakdown without bikes, I could click on that word in the legend, and it will remove that from the table, and I can see that the next highest selling category is likely components. I can always add it back too. You can click into the dashboards as well. You can really explore and click around and see what's what. I'm going to come to the inventory tab this time up at the top. And dashboards are intended for you to sort of look at the information and be able to take quick actions. So looking at the inventory dashboards, I can see, okay, I've got 43 items that are low in stock. If I click on that 43, that opens up a module that will show me which items as well as the vendor are likely to go out of stock soon. So we've got this metric days to sell out, and I can hover over that column in the table to get an understanding of what this column means. If you want, you could download this report and maybe upload it into a purchase order if you needed to reorder a certain amount. But the dashboards are intended for you to be able to look at the information and quickly take some action. So that's the inventory dashboard. We've got more, metrics down below. So do scroll around, click around and see what's what. There's always, information under the employee dashboards and customer dashboards as well. If you have multiple locations, in the top right-hand side, you will see a locations tab. So I'm going to give that a click. And you can choose to isolate a particular location if you want, or 2 locations at a time. It's really up to you. And then apply that. So the dashboards by default will show you all of your locations put together, but you can choose to isolate one. And then it's reloaded all of the dashboards with just the information at the location that I selected. If you want to know more about a term that you see on the dashboards or in any one of the reports, we have a built-in glossary again in the top right. So let's say I want to learn more about terms. If I click on glossary, that gives me a slide out menu on the right, and I can scroll down until I find the term that I want to know more about. So I'm just going to click on the arrow next to terms, and that gives me a brief little overview. And if I click on the word itself, that will open up a guide that explains what that metric is, how I could use this report, and how it benefits me. So there's a lot of built-in resources that really are quite excellent. So it tells you the benefits, how it's calculated, possible variations, so different ways to look at those reports, and then the next steps, or what do you do with the information now that you have it. So do poke around the dashboards after this webinar. If there's metrics you're interested in learning more about, just click in and see, what's there and what's available to you. We're going to take a look at the reports section now. So I'm curious, I'm going to ask another poll question, which is, are you looking to review existing reports, or are you more curious on building your own? All right, most of you have voted. I'm going to say 10 more seconds left on the poll. Okay, I'm going to close the poll, and if I'm too quick, do let me know. Everybody is interested in the existing and custom reports. So we'll really look at, what do we have already and how do we customize those to suit our needs. All right, this time I'm going to use the left-hand navigation. I'm going to click over to the reports page. All right, as with the dashboards, all of the reports are listed in one section. So I could see all of the reports on one page. I can also click on these tabs in order to see just sales and inventory reports, just employee performance or marketing. I have to do an additional filter. So I'm using a demo account, and there's a lot of custom reports in this account. So for me, I'm going to select a filter, and I could filter by category of report or report type. And I'm going to just search for the pre-built reports so I can see the same reports that are in your accounts. Eventually, you might want to do the opposite. Once you have those custom reports built, you might want to just filter on the custom reports that you have built to see those. But for the time being, I'm going to click on pre-built reports and then apply. So that will tailor this list and show me just reports that are the same, in your accounts. And I can sort this list as well. So if I wanted to sort this by the name of the report, I could click on that column and it sorts it in one direction or another. And there's a wealth of reports in this section. Each one does have a little bit of a description next to it. Some of them will have those question mark icons, and that means there's more information available about that particular report. So if I click on it, it gives us the same guide that we saw for the turns report. So lots of cool information. I'm going to scroll down until I see recent sales. And that's the report that we are going to play with. So to enter into a report, I am going to click on the report name. All right. Once we are in this report page, all reports will be built and constructed in very much the same way. So we're going to go over the anatomy of a report now. The first thing I do when I enter into a report is I click on that filters bar so I can expand the filters and see what it is we're looking at. So the sale channel is any value. I can change this up and I can say is e-com or retail. Okay, so this is saying how did the order come in? I'm going to leave that as is any value. And then I have the sale completed date, which is the period of time. So we're looking at is in the past 1 week. I could change that again. I could say on a particular day or a date range. It's really up to you. I quite like is in the past because it allows me to automate the report. So even though we're looking at is in the past 1 week, what's in the data table is only 3 days worth of information. So what's going on? Let's click on the past 1 weeks. So in this dropdown, I've got a bit of a redundant looking list. I've got seconds to years and then complete seconds to complete years. The difference is that the first half of this list is to date. So looking at the past 1 week, that's showing me Sunday until 2 hours ago. If I clicked on the past 1 complete week and I click on run in the top right-hand side, that will reload the report with the new filter and I can see the previous Sunday to Saturday. Another example would be, a month to date report. If I wanted to see this current month, I would choose the past 1 month, whereas the past 1 complete month would ignore the ongoing month of July and show me June's data in its entirety. So it looks at the time period that's run its course and closed. Whenever you change up the filter, you do want to select run in the top right, and that will reload the data. So we will see all of July's data thus far. I see someone has raised their hand. Unfortunately, I can't call on anybody in order for you to ask a question, but you can type directly to me. Okay, so here we have, can we have data from ShopKeep pulled into the system? So this individual is coming from another POS with Lightspeed. It kind of depends how the information was brought over. So if you used the company called DoSync or Enkidu and they migrated your historical information, then yes, it would be possible to have sales data from a previous point of sale. If you started fresh with Lightspeed, only the information that's from Lightspeed will show up. So if you're not sure, you can always speak to your account manager if you're not sure if you use DoSync or some other migration tool. All right, thank you for asking that. Within the table, we've got 2 kinds of columns. We've got blue columns and we've got orange columns. The blue columns are called dimensions, and these are identifying bits of data that you set in retail. They won't change over time. So the name of the item, the category, the brand, all of those are examples of dimensions and they're represented in blue. The orange columns are called measures, and very simply, this is the information that you are interested in measuring. This will fluctuate over time depending on what's happening in the shop. So your quantity on hand, your quantity sold, the profit, the margin. These are examples of measures. They're represented in orange. On the left-hand side, we have what I call the ingredient list. So this is a list of data points that you can add to the table in order to make it your own. So if I click on customer, that will open up a list of data points that are pertinent to your customers, as well as, item. I like to open up all of the section on the left-hand side just so I can see, what lives where, and I can choose how I want to customize this report. So to customize this report, we're going to find the data point we're interested in, and we're going to click on the word. So let's say I want an itemized list of what's sold. So I want the item description. So in clicking on that, it will add it as a column, but it's populated with a list of question marks. So in order to reload this data again, you're always clicking on run after every few changes that you make in the report. And then we've got the item description that have loaded up. Maybe I want to get a sales report by vendor, so I can add the default vendor. Maybe I also want to add some other sale information. So maybe I want to grab some totals and grab the quantity sold as well as the profit. So before I run the report again, I just want to draw your attention to something. You'll notice that I've got a little error message here. It says row limit reached, results may be incomplete. That's okay, that happens. Over on the right, the row limit is currently 500 rows. The true row limit in analytics is actually 5,000 rows, so I can just add a 0 and hopefully that accounts for all of the various rows in my report. Other things we can do, which is quite nice, so we can check off totals, and that will create a summed line down at the bottom, so you don't have to do any math or export this into Excel. So now I'm going to click on Run. And if it's a big report, it might take an extra few seconds to load. All right. So my row limit message is still there. And to mitigate this, I can add a filter in order to tailor the data. So let's say I wanted to see sales from a particular vendor. So I have vendor in the table. I'm going to come up until I see some item information, and I'm going to come back to where it says default vendor. And when I hover over it, I've got these icons that appear over on the right-hand side. So that triangle icon is our filter function. So I'm going to click on that triangle, and it will add it as a filter up at the top. So I could, start to type the name of my vendor, and I can have multiple filters at play. So if I want to see KHS sales in addition to Shimano, I can have, it's not like with retail where it's one filter or everything. You can kind of play around with it. So I want to see both the KHS and Shimano sales so far this month. So I'll run that again. And if I minimize these filters, we'll see in the table that now everything under vendor is either Shimano or KHS. You can rearrange columns to be in the order that you want, but only within colors. So the blues need to stick together and the oranges need to stick together. So I am just going to drag and drop the column where I want it to be. So now the vendor comes first. And maybe I want to rearrange so quantity sold is at the end. If you want, you can sort columns in one way or another. So if you wanted to group all of your vendors together by alphabetical order, if you click on the column vendor, it will organize it. So all of the Shimano items are together, all of the KHS items are together. Or if you wanted to see what your best sellers were, and you define best seller as highest quantity sold, you can click on that column to sort it from highest to lowest. If you want to remove columns from the table, there are two ways to accomplish that. The first way would be to find the field over on the left-hand side and just click on the name again. So if I wanted to remove default vendor, I could click on the word and it removes that column from the table. Another way to remove a column is, so next to each column within the table, they have a gear icon to the right-hand side. So if I click on the gear icon for a completed date, I could then remove that field and it will get rid of the column. Other popular metrics that people add to these sort of sales reports that I've seen is the category information, if that's something that's important to you. So if I click on categories, well, I again have these sort of redundancies. So I have top level category and then category. And if I'm not sure what the difference is, I could click on the eye icon for more info. So the category is the full path of the item, including subcategories, whereas top level is only the parent or top level category. So you can choose, we can add this to the table or add it as a filter. It's up to you. Since this report is fairly different from what we've started out with, I don't want to have to rebuild this each and every time to sort of get to this same place. So I can save this as a new report in the top right-hand side. And I'll give it a name. So I'll say month to date KHS Shimano sales. And I can add a description as well if I want to. If this is a report that you want everyone who has access to your analytics to see, you can click on Share with Entire Company. But if this is a report that you would like to keep private just for you, go ahead and uncheck that and then Save as New. That becomes a new template that you can access whenever you like. Once a report is saved, you can schedule it to run on a regular basis. So if I click on Schedule, I can choose how frequently I want to receive this email. So maybe I want to get this every week on a Wednesday. Alert mode, if this is checked off, it only sends if results are present. Meaning, let's say you set up a daily sales report, but you're closed on Sundays. You're not going to receive an email on Monday morning because there's no sales to report on. I'm going to leave this unchecked. And then the recipient email, so you can have multiple recipients and input their email addresses. The recipient does not need to have access to your Lightspeed analytics. They don't need to even have access to your R-Series platform. So if you deal with an external bookkeeper, you can schedule reports to them to run on a regular basis. So I'll just click on Schedule Email and I'll get a confirmation up at the top. So every Wednesday between 9 a.m. and noon Eastern Standard Time, this report will be delivered to my inbox. If you like, next to schedule, there's this little star icon, which means you can favorite a report. And where that report lives now is under the reports page. And I can have it up here as a favorite. And you don't have to do that right from within the report. If you see a report in this list that you would like to favorite, you could just click on the star icon and it will be added up at the top as like frequently accessed reports. All right, so that was the basis of, the anatomy of a report and filters and so on. I've got another poll question, which is, do you currently have more than one business location that you're managing? Alrighty. So everyone has voted. I'm going to close the poll and share the results with you. So no one has more than one business location, which is a-okay. If you were to expand in the future, know that the default within Lightspeed Analytics is to show you all of the locations put together. So you will want to click on that triangle icon to add a filter. speaking of filtering, I'm going to come back and I'm going to filter by pre-built reports again. And if I know the name of the report, I can also search for it. So I'm going to search for recent sales, and it will pull that one up. So last time when I entered into this report, I clicked on the report name. You also have another option. So over on the right-hand side next to action, or where it says action, that's what I'm going to click on, and then you can load up popular report variations. So maybe I want to see a report by item category or employee. Let's do category. So that will give us a different version of the report that we started out with previously. Always expand the filters. So we're looking at sales in the past 1 week. I'm going to change that to be the past 3 months. And then I'll run that. So that will show me July, but also June and May. So in this list now, I've got these sale line totals, but I can't see, for example, for bike, how much of that was sold in May compared to June. It's all lumped together. So maybe I want to do a bit of a comparison. So to do that, I'm going to find the month name in my ingredient list. So I'll come to sale, click on completed date, and I will add the month. So I'm just going to click on that word and it will add it to the table, and I'm just going to run that again. Now, what that's given me, it's given me the sales totals for each month along with the category, but it's not particularly neat. So I've got bikes listed 3 times because it sold each month, and same thing for components. So it's not the prettiest report to look at. To fix this, instead of adding it as a column in the table, I'm going to come over to where it says month in the ingredient list, and I'm going to click on this arrow icon for pivot data. Clicking on those arrows will remove the column as a column in the table and place it as a row on top. So I'm going to click on run again. And with the pivot, that will condense up my categories. I'm getting ahead of myself. That will condense up the categories. So I only have bike listed 1 time, but I can see the sales from May compared to June and compared to July. So a pivot is an excellent way to compare data side by side, whereas a filter would be if you wanted to tailor the data, if you just wanted to see May's sales or sales from a particular category or brand. That would be a filter, whereas a pivot is to compare information. Good question came in. So what is that symbol in row number 2? Okay, so I believe this individual means what is this symbol between bike and components? That is called a null symbol. So it is a 0 with a line through it. And what that means is that there is no information available about that particular column. So there are some items that have sold within Lightspeed that are not properly categorized. And this can be fairly impactful because we can see that's $7,700,000 worth of merchandise that isn't properly categorized. So maybe, you know, my apparel category is actually selling better than I think it is because maybe there's merchandise that hasn't been properly categorized. So whenever you see those null symbols in a report, that should prompt you to ask a question. What's missing? What is it missing from? Go make sure that information lives in the retail point of sale. So go make sure your items have a category, have a brand, have a vendor. If that information is important for you to report on, go make sure it lives in retail. Otherwise, it will not come over to the analytics side. The information in analytics is only as good as the information that is in retail. And the information syncs every 2 to 3 hours. So there is a delay. This information is not in real time. So this will not include sales done today. So if a sale happens at 10 a.m., it will show up at noon in analytics. So if you need like real-time reports, you can always leverage the basic reporting in R series to start and then build, you know, more robust reports in this, but just do be aware of that time delay. All right, so that is the pivot. I do want to ask, I want to look at other sections as well. So the question now, I'm going to come to you and ask, what are the sections of Lightspeed Analytics that interest you most? What reports do you want to see? All right. So I'm going to close the poll and I will share the results with you. So a lot of you are interested in marketing, and some of you, want to see some more sales and inventory, and no one really wants to see employee performance, which is okay. I will say that some reports have overlaps of data points. So if you are interested in, what customers have purchased, that is found under the marketing section. But if I click on customer, I can also get a certain amount of customer information. So if I wanted to see people who, bought a bike and how much they spent on it in the last 3 months, I can grab the customer full name and I could filter by the category, which would be bikes. So we will look at the marketing section, but do know that there is that overlap. You can kind of get some information on a sales report. It just depends on what kind of questions you want to answer. All right. I'm not going to let that load. I'm actually just going to pop out of here. Before we talk about the marketing section, there is one report in the sales and inventory section that I want to take a look at, and that is the dusty inventory. So that's the aging report. So this will look at items that have been in your inventory for a long time without making a sale. And it only counts as of when the items have been put into our series. So if you've already had the items that came over from another point of sale, like ShopKeep, Lightspeed doesn't know how old the item was when it was in your old point of sale. So the counter kind of starts once it gets into Lightspeed. So keep that in mind. Always expand the filters. So what on earth are we looking at? The filters will tell us. So items are not archived, the quantity on hand is greater than 0, and it is considered to be dusty based on the parameters that we set at the start of the webinar. And it is included, meaning that if I unchecked show alerts at the start of the webinar, those items will not be included. And then we'll see a list of items, and what is the total cost of what's on hand that's currently dusty. And if you're not sure what a column is as well, you can hover over it and it will give you that definition. So days since sold is the last time the item did sell. And we've got some null symbols here too, meaning that maybe this item hasn't sold at all in the period of time it's been in Lightspeed. Days since received can highlight some buying discrepancies. Maybe you, sold out of something, or you sold something and then brought it into inventory more recently. So this first item sold 229 days ago, and the last time I received it was about 20 days later. So it hasn't sold since. So maybe I can reevaluate my buying strategy if you're seeing that. The layout of the report is very, very similar. So if I come over to item, I can, add a filter. I can tailor this up to be what I want if you wanted to isolate it. So that ingredient list is always on the left-hand side. And the filters work the same, adding the information to the table, like that's all consistent throughout any report that you look at. What will change from report to report is the information that's available on the left-hand side in the ingredients. On an items report, we will not have customer information. We will not have employee information. It's really focused on item metrics. There are some other neat reports in the sales and inventory side. I'm not going to talk about them because I really could talk about it for hours and hours, but we only have an hour together, so I'm gonna move on. And we'll talk about the marketing section. So the marketing section is customer behavior. So you can choose, who to target for an email campaign, but also what items to bundle together for a BOGO discount. So there's not as many reports in this section as there are in the sales and inventory side, but it's no less important. So some reports that I really like, one of them is commonly bought together. This is a funny little report, and I say that affectionately, and it's a little bit funny because things are here in duplicate, and that is expected. So let's take a look. So in the first two rows, I've got a rear tire install is paired most often with a front tire install. And then the second line says a front tire install is paired most often with a rear tire install. And these two items have been sold 332 times together. The reason these items are here in duplicate is to account for whether or not the item was added first to the sale or second. So these items haven't been sold 600 odd times together. It really is just 332, but it's just accounting for, when they show up on the sale. Why this report is useful is for bundling discounts. So if you do like buy one, get one, you can see what are items that people are already pairing together in order to discount them. And the ingredient lists work a little bit different. So the columns here are called sale line 1 and sale line 2, and that's mirrored in the ingredient list. So if I click on sale line 1, I can add a filter for top level category, and I'll say is equal to accessories. And that will apply the filter just for this one particular column. If I wanted to see what two accessories are paired together most often, then I'm going to come to sale line 2, and I'm just going to repeat the behavior. So grab the top level category as the filter and type in accessories. So you can always wait for the system to populate the category for you and choose it that way, or you can type it in. If you're typing in a filter, you want to spell it the exact same way it is spelt in retail. So caps have to remain the same or all lowercase, depending on your convention. So when I run that report, I will isolate items that are in the accessories category and see which two items are, paired together. So maybe I do a discount. And again, I would expand the filters and I can see, okay, these are sales that happened in the last 60 days. And I can always save this, schedule it, run it again, up to you. If I go back to the reports page and I come back to marketing. So that was commonly bought together. The sort of what I would call the powerhouse report in this section is probably customer lifetime value. So I'm just going to give that a right click and open it in a new tab so I don't have to apply the same filters again. But what this report will do is show you a list of customers and their contact information and their historic lifetime value. So this is the sum of all the sales totals that they've been attached to using Lightspeed, and maybe your previous point of sale if you've brought over that data. You can also get specific customer metrics such as days since last purchase. So when was the last time they were back? So this first customer has last been back a day ago, and they've spent over $400,000 worth of merchandise in the shop. Over on the left, again, I can get some customer information. So I could, get the date of birth if you wanted to send out a little birthday postcard, or the first sale date if you wanted to send like an anniversary card. It's really up to you and what information, you find pertinent. One metric that I like is actually days between purchases. So if you sell things where it's normal that people would come back and repurchase it, like animal food or, creams, makeups, that kind of thing, you can get days between purchases to see, okay, well, how long is it, between when people are coming back, and maybe entice them to come back a little bit sooner. This report is also really handy if you're going to set up a loyalty or rewards program. So if, for example, maybe I'm setting up a VIP group of customers, and I can filter for the historic lifetime value is between maybe $20,000 and $100,000. And I maybe also want to see and this sort of range for people who have their days since last purchase is less than 90. So people who I identify as big spenders who have last been back in the past 3 months. And I can get a nice little list here. And then if I choose, over in the top right-hand side next to run, there is this gear icon. And I could download this report. I could upload that information into MailChimp or Constant Contact, whatever you're using as your marketing tool. And you can create a very targeted email list. One thing I want to show you, so I'm actually going to come back to the gear icon and I'm going to remove the fields and filters. Whoa, and that just takes everything off of this page. It essentially gives you a clean slate and you can begin to build whatever you like. So you can grab, customer email and the first sale date, average lifetime value and historic lifetime value. I can start to build something completely novel. But what happened to that first customer lifetime value report, the original version of the report that I had opened up? Well, if I come back to the report page and I click into it, what will load up is the original version of the report before I clicked on remove fields and filters. So there's a lot of information within Lightspeed Analytics, and you will get more comfortable finding that. The information, you can, change the filters, you can delete them, add new ones, remove columns. It's not going to break the system. And it's not going to impact the information that's in R series. So the information comes over from Lightspeed R series to analytics in one direction. It doesn't go the other way around. So you couldn't rename a customer or delete delete an item within Lightspeed Analytics. It's just not possible. There's always a link back to R series. So if I click on the customer name, I can go check them out in the Lightspeed POS. All this is to say is, come in and be adventurous, poke around and see what's possible. It's really, really hard to break the system. Believe me, I've tried. Okay, what is the best practice? Someone asked a great question. What is the best practice to print a report if we need to see it on paper or use a report on a paper copy? So in the top right-hand side next to run, there is this gear icon. And you can download the report. So you can download this either as a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet. And from there, you can print from Excel. So you don't really have printing abilities within Lightspeed Analytics. You can download it and then print it from either Excel or Google Sheets or what have you. You can get a PNG, which would be like a picture of the report or the visualization, but this doesn't produce the best results. So I would suggest either downloading as an Excel or CSV. All right. If you need more assistance or have questions, you can always click on help in the bottom left-hand side of Lightspeed Analytics and see our documentation or help videos. You can also create a ticket with our frontline support team if you have any questions. On the R series side, oh, it disconnected me. On the R series side, you can always click on help and then chat with my colleagues in support. You can also go to the help center. So there are lots of guides. There's no shortage of information on Lightspeed Analytics. So you can check out the section that's called Lightspeed Analytics, not Analytics Core. That's a different platform. We did not look at that today. So lots of guides there. And you can also check out the Lightspeed community, which are community forums where entrepreneurs such as yourselves can go and post questions and see tutorials and that kind of thing. So lots of nice, neat information there. Let's go into the final bits of housekeeping before we go into the Q&A. All right, so in terms of next steps, do refer to our help center and video collection for reference, and scrub your data for any missing information. So this would be those null symbols. If there's null symbols under category, brands, whatever it might be, go make sure that information lives in R series. And step 3 is book your one-on-one consultation with analytics. I'm actually going to take care of this for you. So your launch coordinators will reach out in order to book a one-on-one session with an implementation specialist. I highly recommend taking advantage of this, one-on-one, because it's where, we work with your data as opposed to a demo account, and you can sort of speak with a specialist to see, okay, what information interests you and how can you get that? What are the best practices? So we're going to reach out and book that. It is officially Q&A time. So if you have any burning questions, please don't hesitate to type them to me and I will see what I can answer. All right, this first question is there a report that will show me when I am busiest? Yes, there is. Okay. So within Lightspeed Analytics, if I come back to the reports page, for a report to show you when you are busy, this is actually under employee performance. So funny enough. And I'm always going to be filtering by pre-built reports so I can see the same reports that you have. So in this section, to see when you're busy, I would recommend checking out the sales by hour of the day. So I'm going to open that in a new tab. And so if I expand the filters, that will tell me I'm looking at any location in the past 90 days. From there, this maps out, this takes 100% of the sales that happen in that 90 days and maps out the hour in which they occurred. So this is literally giving you a heat map of how many transactions happen in an hour. So based on this, the more green a cell is, the more number of sales happen during that hour. So I can see, Wednesday afternoons really pick up for me, but the mornings are pretty quiet. If I'm looking to hire people, I'm going to want to make sure they're free evenings and weekends because that's when I'm busy. And if you have outliers, some sales that happen at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and you're not open during this time, those are probably e-commerce sales. So just focus your attention on the hours that you are in operation. If you are if you have been using Lightspeed long enough, you can actually plug in a date range and use last year's sales history to schedule this year's shifts. So this report is really quite nice. If you create tags for expiration, can you generate a report for that tag? Yes. So depending on what you want to see, you can go in one of two ways. If I click on create custom report in the top right hand side, I could choose either an items report, so that focuses on item details, or I can choose a sale report. So the big difference is that a sale report will not include inventory for items that have not sold. So if you want to generate a report based on tag and you also want to include items that have not sold, I would probably select items. The filter is in both reports, so it just depends on what function do you want the report to serve. And then I'll come over to item and I'll just expand that until I find tag. And I could add that as a filter and you would type in whatever that tag might be. And that would just isolate items with that particular tag. So I can add the description. I don't know if you wanted any other metrics such as quantity on hand. And I can run that. I can also see in the search field, I can search for days. So days since sold, and it will tell me, when was the last time this item sold, and I can see what item now has that tag. Oh, I'm glad I can help. So I've been using Lightspeed Analytics for a long time. I'm very comfortable knowing where the information lives. Uh, and so I hope you don't feel overwhelmed. Just come in and poke around. It's a very friendly and forgiving software in that sense that you can play with it and learn, where certain parameters live. And that's what I would encourage you to do. It's a muscle memory kind of thing. So once you expand, all of the fields and you say, okay, what's category? Which one do I want? You'll get used to searching for it in that way. You can also use the search field and I can look for quantity. Oops, I'll spell it correctly. Quantity, and I can see all of the parameters that I can then add to the table or as a filter. So there are some options for you to learn the platform there. Alrighty. I think those are all of the questions that have come in at this point. I will say thank you all very, very much for joining the session today. It was awesome to interact with you. I hope this webinar was useful. I hope you're excited to go in and poke around. And I hope we get to chat again for that one-on-one session. So until then, I hope you all have a very great rest of your day and have a lot of fun in Lightspeed Analytics. Bye for now, everyone.